our next presentation coming up right here. Amryt Pharma, it's ticker AMYT, and there is the man we're going to be speaking with, Rory Nealon. He is CFO of Amryt. Take it away, sir.
Great. Now, how do I move? I can't seem to move this. Can you help me out here? Oh, okay.
I think that Chelsea backstage is going to click for you. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, listen. Thank you, Chelsea. Maybe you'll skip on to slide 4. We're well au fait with these disclaimers. And let me the next slide, please. Let me start by saying there's a lot of slides here. We're going to skip a few as we're going through them. But let me start by saying we set up Amryt back in 2015. Myself and Joe Wiley, our CEO, to acquire, develop, and commercialize assets in the rare and orphan disease space. Why rare and orphan? Small numbers of patients, small numbers of centres, small numbers of physicians treating them, and massive unmet medical need. As of today, we've got 3 global commercial assets. We have a 4th hopefully about to get approved. So we have all that infrastructure in situ globally to be a fully fledged pharmaceutical company. And we're also EBITDA profitable. So we're driving profits on the bottom line, and that's converting into cash growth as well. In terms of where we're listed, on the right-hand side of this slide, we're listed on the NASDAQ market since July 2020. We're also currently listed on the AIM market of the London Stock Exchange going back to 2016, albeit we're delisting from that to be solely listed on NASDAQ with effect from early January. From a revenue perspective, we've grown the business from 136 million pro forma revenues in 2018 to 154 million in 2019 to 183 million last year. And this year, we're going to do somewhere between 200 and 225 million. So significant growth year on year. And yet that growth is about to experience explosive growth because we have 2 new products. One we just acquired in August this year. Another one will hopefully be about to get approved, and that will drive explosive growth as we go forward. If you take me to the next slide, please, Chelsea. Very quickly, in terms of our history, like I said, formed in 2015, IPO'd in London in 2016. Most importantly, we licensed an asset called Lojuxta in December 16 from a company called Agerian. I won't go through all of this slide here. In 2019, we ultimately came along and bought that company, Agerian. So it was 9 times bigger than us. But actually, the bondholders who were effectively in control at that point in time liked what we had done with their asset from 2016. We had doubled the revenues in the ensuing 2 years, backed us to take on the rest of their business. So we did that exactly in September 19. And we became overnight a company about 10x the size we were. When we did that, we told the markets we were going to convert 2 loss-making businesses into an EBITDA profitable business by Q2 of 2020. We actually got there by Q1. So we turned those 2 businesses around, made them EBITDA profitable within 6 months. We converted our operating expenditure pro forma combined from 150 million to 104 million. So that's a significant challenge to do. And we've done it very successfully. And we did so, by, like I said, by Q1 2020. We also read out our data from our EV study in September of that year and showed we hit the primary endpoint. I'll talk more about that later on. And then in 2021, we bought a business called Chiasma with a product that's treating acromegaly. And again, I'll walk you through that later on. If you can skip to the next slide, please, Chelsea. I just want to dwell on this one a little bit and talk about the global infrastructure. So like I alluded to a second ago, Amryt is a fully fledged pharmaceutical company. We have everything from sales reps, medical affairs, patient support, PV, quality, regulatory, supply chain, and are able to do so directly into the US market, also into the large EU5 markets in Italy, Spain, Germany, France, the UK. We use distributors in the other EU 23 countries. We use distributors in Russia and Canada. And in LATAM and the Middle East, we're also there with our own boots on the ground embedded with local partners. The only place really of substance we're not for our market is in Japan, and that's because the rights for the Japanese market were given away before we bought Agerian in 2019. So fully fledged infrastructure. And the really important point here is we can take on more products and put them through that infrastructure in a very efficient way. Whether it's the asset we bought from Chiasma in August of this year, or whether it's our own EB asset, which hopefully will get approved in Q1 next year, we have the infrastructure to do that in a very efficient way. If you skip to the next slide, please, and we'll go on. We'll skip this one as well in the interest of time. So I said a minute ago, and I just want to dwell on it again in terms of the revenue performance and the excellent, if you like, a transformation of these assets since we acquired them. Like I said, it was 136 million in 2018, which you cannot see on the slide. But if you then follow to the right on the bar graph, you can see it went to 154 to 183. And this year will be somewhere between 220 and 225, albeit about 5 to 6 million of that is from the recent acquisition. But you can still see steady, significant growth year on year. Next slide, please. I'm going to dwell on this slide a little bit and walk you through our products and what they do. So we have three commercial assets and hopefully a 4th very soon. On the top left, you have what's called Metrolepton, or Myleptin, the US is the brand name, or Myolepta in Europe. And it's approved for the treatment of lipodystrophy. What is lipodystrophy? Lipodystrophy is caused by low leptin levels in your body. And with low leptin, you cannot have any or store any body fat. So you look emaciated or skeletal-like. It was approved in the US to treat generalized lipodystrophy, which is approximately 1 per million of the population. It was more recently approved in Europe to treat partial lipodystrophy and general lipodystrophy. Partial is what it says, it affects part of the body. So think of Europe as being approved to treat 2 per million of the population. Think of the US as being approved to treat 1 per million of the population. We are also about to start a phase 3 study in the US such that we can get PL approved and on market in the US as well. Limitopai then is known as Juxtapid in the States or Lojuxta in Europe. I remind you, Lojuxta is the product we licensed back in December 16, and we doubled the revenues over the ensuing 2 years. And that's what the bondholders liked of Algerian, and that's why they backed us to take on their company. Limitopai is for the treatment of homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia, or significantly high LDL levels or bad cholesterol in the body. It's not what you typically think about in the context of statins or PCSK9 inhibitors. This effectively treats patients who typically have their first cardiac event in their teenage years. So it's quite significant. We have one 4-year-old on treatment, believe it or not, who actually has had her first heart attack already. So very significant, significant disease on market in both the US and in Europe. And I'll show you the revenue numbers later on. Mycapssa then is the asset we just acquired from a company called Chiasma. Mycapssa is currently approved in the US to treat acromegaly. So when you think of acromegaly, think of gigantism, think of Jaws from the Bond movies. I'm sure you all understand what I mean. And today, those patients are typically treated with once a month, long-acting injectable octreotide. So you go to your healthcare setting, you get a large bore needle, very significant needle. One investor referred to it as a horse needle, and into the posteriors. Some patients can't sit down for 2 or 3 days. And over the course of a month, that releases the octreotide into your system. What's really relevant here is that we have converted that once a month long-acting injectable into a twice daily oral formulation. It's currently about a $400 million market opportunity in the United States. Our goal is to achieve about half of that. And this is one of those potential explosive growth assets that I talked about earlier on. There's also a potential for this product in something called neuroendocrine tumors, or NET. Again, NET is today treated with once a month long-acting injectable octreotide, albeit in a slightly higher dose. So the opportunity for us is to do a phase 3 study to show that our twice daily oral formulation also works in this disease. This market is a $1.9 billion market globally, with approximately $1 billion in the United States. So again, a significant upside opportunity if that product passes its phase 3 approval. The next product is called Gel S10, sometimes referred to as Filsavez, which will be the brand name if the product gets approved. We read out our data, our phase 3 data in September of 2020 last year. Super excited about this asset. We have a target PDUFA date or approval date from the FDA of the 28th of February, and we expect the European CHMP opinion sometime early Q1 as well. So that's super exciting opportunity. This is potentially a $1 billion market opportunity, and it's for the treatment of epidermolysis bullosa, or EB. I don't know if everybody on this call knows what EB is, but it's effectively described as the worst disease you've never heard of. So quite a significant opportunity for us here. In effect, what EB is, it's a defect in the genes that code for the proteins that anchor your skin. Or to laymen like you and me, what it means is the Velcro holding the layers of your skin together doesn't exist. So if you bump into a wall or you sit into a chair too robustly, the top layer of the skin will slough off, and you'll get what's called a partial thickness wound. So think of when you all fell off your bicycles as a kid and cut your knee and exposed the nerve endings and how sore it was. That's effectively what these patients have for the whole of their lives. Some patients can have up to 80% of their body surface area affected. So it truly is a significant disease. And this, hopefully, will be the first product approved and on market to help treat these poor patients. Lastly, we do have a gene therapy product called AP103. Gene therapies put the Velcro back into the skin, potentially make the skin more robust. So that's something we're super excited about, but in the interest of time, we won't dwell on that one too much. If you skip on, please, to the next slide. So I'm going to skip through the next 5 or 6 slides very quickly. I just want to point out the market opportunity to you for each of these products that I've already alluded to. So remember, Metrolepton is for the treatment of lipodystrophy, approved in the US to treat generalized, approved in Europe to treat generalized and partial lipodystrophy. You can see on the very bottom of the blue bar, it's a circa 500 million market opportunity, of which 280 is in the United States, albeit half of that is on label. The other half of that 280 needs a phase 3 study to get PL approved in the US. So a significant market opportunity. You skip to the next slide, you'll notice it's to do with Limidipide. And again, you can see it's circa 250 million market opportunity. And this product is something we've been selling since 2013. The next slide deals with Acromegaly. This is for the treatment of gigantism. And on the bottom right-hand side, you can see it's an $800 million market globally, 400 million in the US. And like I said, our goal is to get half of those patients to switch from the once monthly long-acting injectable into the twice daily oral formulation. And that's something we're super excited about. The next slide just briefly talks to the neuroendocrine tumors. Again, I said it earlier, but I'll repeat, and it's here for people to look back at later on. This is a $1.9 billion market opportunity, of which $1 billion is in the US. And our goal is to do a phase 3 study and hopefully get that product in market and probably launched sometime around 2025. The next couple of slides just talk to our EB asset. If you skip to forward another couple, please, sorry, keep going. And then one more. So this is the data from our phase 3 study to do with EB. I'll remind you, EB is for the treatment of these partial thickness wounds where the Velcro is missing from the skin. We did a phase 3 study, which was a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study. And we studied the 3 severe subtypes of EB: recessive dystrophic EB, dominant dystrophic EB, and junctional EB. But by far and away, the most important is the data on the left-hand side to do with recessive dystrophic EB. So what you can see in the blue bar is our product and the percentage of patient wounds healed by day 45, the target wounds healed by day 45. And on the gray bar, you can see the percentage of wounds for the placebo healed by day 45. Put it another way, what our product does based on this data is it shows a 72% greater chance of wound healing by the primary endpoint, day 45. And we also hit what's called statistical significance with a p-value of 0.008. So super excited about this data. Like I said, this is currently with the FDA and the EMA, with a view to getting this product approved, hopefully in Q1 next year. And that really would be one of those explosive growth products. If you skip on it, please, Chelsea. And I'll keep skipping, sorry, I'm just conscious it's a short presentation. This graph just shows you on the right-hand side in particular, the blue line is our product, the black line is the placebo. And you can see the percentage reduction in the wound size on the left-hand side of the y-axis. And you can see that definite difference, if you like, in the curve and the fact that our product seems to be speeding up the wound quicker. Let's kick on to the next slide, please, Chelsea. And this slide just briefly it's okay, keep going. This slide just briefly talks to the timing in terms of FDA EMA approval. On the right-hand side, you can see the target PDUFA date from the FDA is the 28th of February. If we hit that date and we get approved, we're eligible for what's called a priority review voucher. A priority review voucher is something that we could use ourselves to speed up the next FDA approval process, or we can sell it to large pharma. And pretty much all companies who get these priority review vouchers sell them on. And the going rate for these vouchers is about $110 million based on the last 2 that were sold. The bottom half of the slide talks to the EMA approval in Europe. And as you can see, the EMA CHMP opinion is currently expected in January. If you skip 2 or 3 slides, please, Chelsea. I'll skip this in the interest of time. And again, thank you. So I'd like to slow down on this slide and just give you some update in terms of the numbers. So in the top left quadrant of this slide, you can see our sales of Metrolepton. Metrolepton is our asset that treats lipodystrophy. As you can see, it's growing quarterly by 7.3% quarter on quarter. It's growing faster than that in Europe, actually. In fact, Q3 versus Q3 last year, it grew 143%, which is quite significant. And it'll continue to do so. The reason being in Europe is it's only recently been approved. And remember, it also is approved to treat 2 per million of the population versus 1 per million in the US. So a significant market opportunity. And we expect that product to continue to grow quite significantly as we go forward. Limidipide has been on market for longer, so it's more steady state. You can see it's growing at about 1% per annum. Down the bottom left-hand quadrant, you can see we genuinely are an EBITDA profitable company. Like I said at the very start, we converted these 2 loss-making businesses, Agerian and Amryt, into a EBITDA profitable business in Q1 2020. And as you can see, EBITDA is continuing to climb quarter on quarter as we go through the last 6 or 7 quarters. That is converted into cash. So as you can see on the right-hand side, our cash grows typically quarter on quarter. In full disclosure, we did raise 40 million in Q4 last year of new equity. That's partially explaining the increase. But if you look at the climb from March to June last year, you can see it went from 118 million to 142 million. And that's all organic cash growth within the business. It did decline a little bit because when we bought Chiasma in August of this year, we used some of our cash to pay off the debt on their balance sheet. Next slide, please, Cedric. I'll cover the top two quadrants, so I'll skip those and I'll just talk a little bit about our balance sheet. We do, if you go back one please, we do have 125 million of convertible debt on our balance sheet, not due for a payment until April 2025. It's currently trading at about a 30% premium to face value. Why is that? Because they're not paying 30% premium for the cash coupon. What they're actually doing is looking at the upside from the conversion option on the convertible. Our conversion price is $12.95. And if you compare that to the target analyst prices we have 7 or 8 analysts at the moment, the target price range is from $19 to $45. So I appreciate that's quite a large range. But obviously buyers of this piece of paper see the upside in the conversion option in terms of future share price appreciation. On the right-hand side, we do have 92 million of term debt. We're currently refinancing that because the coupon is a little bit high. If you go to the next slide, Chelsea, I'll skip over the list of all the analysts that are covering Amryt. So for a 600 million market cap company, we've got a significant degree of analyst coverage, and I believe that's because they see the upside potential from this company. And then the last slide, Chelsea, please, just talks to the summation of what I've been saying to you. I would sum it up by saying we are a global commercial company with 3 on-market approved products that we're currently commercializing with significant growth opportunities, and a 4th potentially on the way in our EB asset if it gets approved by the FDA and EMA in Q1 next year. We also have a significant development pipeline, as I go clockwise around the quadrants here, a significant development pipeline, like I mentioned EB a second ago, but we've also got a significant opportunity in NET for our MyCaps asset, which is a $1.9 billion global market opportunity. We've also put together a really phenomenal management team. I can't stress this enough, and if you talk to the analysts and the investors, they'll say exactly that. We've always hit expectations. We always so far have delivered in terms of buying business, integrating them phenomenally well, phenomenally quickly, reducing the cost base, driving the profitability, and we've just got that track record. And lastly, we have the infrastructure in place. So we have, like I said, a global infrastructure that covers all the significant markets in the globe, except for Japan, rather. And as a result, we can take on more assets. I said to you at the very start, we set up Amryt to acquire, develop, and commercialize, and we're going to continue to do that. Thanks for your time. Any questions?
That was great, Rory. Thank you very much. A couple quick questions here. I got a question, and then we had a really good question from our audience, and we'll start with that one. How well has Chiasma been integrated into Amryt? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I'll go back just a little bit and just remind everybody that we took the Algerian business, which was significantly larger than Chiasma.
Sure.
And in the process, what we did was we moved, to be honest, a lot of jobs out of Boston, which is phenomenally expensive, and moved them to Ireland, which is a lot cheaper. It's easier to hang on to the folk. We typically hired similar caliber people at 50 to 70% of the cost of hiring those folks in Boston.
Wow.
So but that was a much bigger lift for us. We didn't have the systems in place ourselves at the time. Chiasma is a much easier lift for us. It's a smaller business, smaller number of people. We're replicating the model that we did with Algerian, and our goal is to convert that business into an EBITDA positive business for the calendar year 2022. We're very much on track to do that. If you look at the performance in just August and September alone, we significantly reduced the cost base. I think the markets expected we were going to take on 18 million of losses from Chiasma per quarter. We had it for 2 months, so 2/3 being 12 million of pro forma losses. The markets probably expected that to knock Amryt into an EBITDA loss position. We still remain EBITDA profitable. So that tells you we did a phenomenal job in just 2 months of reducing that cost base. There is more to be done. You'll see further progress as we go into Q4 and then again into Q1 and so on.
Good to know. So real quick, one more question here and a nice segue that you had there. Let's jump ahead to summer of 2022. What are some things that you're excited, or one thing that you're excited about that you want to relay to investors here today?
I think the things to look out for, most the important dates are 28th of February, the PDUFA date. That will be hopefully the approval of that Gel or Filsavez asset. It'll be the first product on market. That's a massive for us. I mean, I think you can easily justify the current market cap based on the 2 legacy commercial assets, Metrolepton and Limitabide. If you think about it, we're doing just shy of 220 million this year, and those 2 products alone, and we have a 600 million market cap. So you could easily justify the market cap based on those 2. And on top of that, you've got the free ride that's from the MyCaps asset and also from that EB asset if it gets approved. So that date, 28th of February, is the biggie. The week after that, we'll have our Q4 results out. You'll see more progress with the Chiasma transaction, and it's something we're super excited about.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today here, Rory. Rory Nealon, he is CEO at Amryt. It's ticker AMYT, and you have a great day, sir.
Great. Thanks for your time.